All right, lads, we're doing it live, like Bill O'Reilly. Man, that clip is so old. You guys have probably never even seen that. I would insert it here, except I think he says the F word like multiple times, which you're not allowed to say on YouTube within like the first minute or something like that. I forgot exactly what it does to the algorithm, but it's not good. So first movement as I go into back day, this starts both of my back days. So I have two different back days. This movement starts both of them. This is my unilateral pull down. On this session, I have two working sets in the 8 to 12 rep range, and then one working set in the 12 to 15 rep range. So this right here is my top set, and I'm going to film it from a couple different angles so you guys can kind of see the way that I move in this. So what I want you to specifically pay attention to is elbow drive, where my elbow is going, because this is a lat movement. Okay. I'm driving my elbow as much as I can into my hip, like my hip joint, where basically like the top of the thigh. Okay. And an important piece here is look where my elbow is not going. It's not going behind my torso. I'm not pulling it behind me. This is something that I see so commonly done. That is no longer working your lats when you are doing that. So these people that are obsessed with full range of motion, full ROM, everything, look, it has its place. And then there's other movements where it doesn't have its place. This is one of them where I do not believe that going further behind you is more beneficial. I think it just takes away from the exercise. So I wanted to let you guys see that from the back, and then you can kind of see it from this front angle a little bit better too. My elbow is basically in line with my torso, if not a little bit in front of it. So you can see there, it's actually a little bit in front of my torso. Okay. I'm also using a D handle on this. Normally I never use D handles with machines that have handles on them. Okay. Not like a D handle goblin like everybody on TikTok these days, attaching D handles to absolutely everything. But for this movement, because the way this machine moves near the bottom, it has this weird, I don't know how to describe it, but it moves very odd. And like the last, very last bit of the movement, it just doesn't. It's not conducive to lats at that very bottom part. However, when I attach the D handle, that gives me like an extra like 4 inches of range. So I'm able to not necessarily pull the handle of the machine super low where it starts getting into that function that I don't like. But with that extra 4 inches, I can now get the range of motion that I need and keep everything in my lat and not mess it up. So that's why I'm using a D handle on this. I'm not like a big D handle advocate for machines that already have handles on them. They have handles on them for a reason. Going into my next movement, this is a really straightforward movement here. It's a God, what is it? What do I even write this down as? I forgot. I think I just write it down as a straight bar cable row. So for me, this is 3 sets in the, I think it's an 8 to 15 rep range. So it's a range where there's like, it's a large range. So it allows me to go heavier on certain days or go lighter on certain days, or kind of do a mix of both on the same day. I filmed this one from a couple different angles as well, because I want you guys to be able to kind of see how it functions. Okay. This is another exercise where I've explained this on the T-bar row before. You don't need these hyper ranges of motion. God, I feel like I'm going to go on a rant here, but I'm trying not to. Where, again, these full ROM hippies that just are so dogmatic in their approach that absolutely everything has to be full ROM, and if you're not doing it that way, like you're just leaving gains on the table. I highly disagree with that in many movements. Okay, this is another one of them where you will see guys like excessively round the upper back to the point where their chest caves in. Everything rounds forward, and that's great that you're getting a stretch and all that. But what you just saw right there, that was a full stretch of my back. It's not going to stretch anymore. Other things start stretching if I were to go past that. And then also keep in mind, when you're doing that, you're actually taking away from your output. So if I do get that extra stretch that I don't think you need, I also have to put like 30 or 40 less pounds on the bar. That's going to take away from my muscle building a lot, because that's one of the key components is progressive overload and actually being able to use a heavy enough stimulus to build muscle. Okay. I showed you that front angle too, so you could kind of get an idea, the front and the side angle, get an idea of where I'm pulling in order to target my upper back, because that is an upper back movement right there. And some guys you'll see, they pull too high. If you're pulling towards like chest level, that's too high. You're not able to fully retract everything in your back when you're pulling too high. So pull around to the belly button area, or basically slightly above that area. Now a T-bar row is slightly different because of the nature of that exercise, but for a straight bar cable row, that's really where you want to be pulling to get the most out of the movement. So after that, I went into my next lap movement, which is a single arm cable row. This is 3 sets, 8 to 12 in the 3 sets, 8 to 12 rep range. Now again, I'm not excessively stretching here. I am keeping my shoulder as like stable and neutral as possible. My elbow, I'm also not driving it past my torso. There's no reason for it to drive past the torso in order to get the most out of your lat. Once you start doing that, you're working your upper back. And that's again, it's another thing that I see with this emphasis on full ROM is guys pulling that elbow way behind them. And it's like, man, you're using all your upper back for that. And because they do it that way, it's not like they're transitioning from lat into upper back. They develop a habit of using all upper back in that movement. So you're not getting any lat out of it, or you're getting very, very little lat out of it. So, if you're one of those people that pulls way behind you, I would, encourage you to try it the way that I was doing it right there. The next movement here is just a close grip underhand pull down. It's supposed to be a neutral grip pull down, but we don't really have a great neutral grip here at my gym, so I do this underhand mag grip because this is a lat movement again, primarily. So with this, I do the same principle as that first movement, the unilateral pull down, is I'm concentrating on trying to drive my elbows down into my hips. I'm not trying to pull my elbows behind me. I'm just trying to pull them as straight down as I can and pretend like I'm trying to put them in my pocket. Another thing I want to touch on with back training that you can see through all these movements is the fluidity of the movements. This is another really common thing done wrong that I've been seeing a lot lately, because it's probably, one, because of, how my algorithm is tailored But when people put a huge emphasis on progressive overload, like, look, that needs to be there. But I'm talking about to the extremes where when I look at their back work and every rep looks like a grinder rep, that's a problem to me. And I think you'll recognize that it's a problem in those people because they almost all have terrible backs. When there's no fluidity to your back training, to me, back training is like an art because there is so many moving pieces back there. You have to know how to target each one if you want to get a fully developed back from top to bottom. And fluidity is a huge part of that. Because if there's no fluidity to the movements, you're kind of just muscling it per se. And when you're doing that, you're not using your back to move it. You're using your arms, you're using your biceps, you're using your forearms, you're using your shoulders. You're using very little back to do that. Look at all the great backs in history. Every single one of them, even look at guys nowadays who have good backs, none of them are doing crazy grindy reps for all their sets. You'll look at their back training and it's very fluid. Like it almost looks like they stopped with a bunch of reps left in the tank. It will always look like that. But they always have the best backs, the most fully developed backs. Last exercises were rear delts. Not going to cover those. If you're small, you don't need to do them. And then after that, I moved into these, what were they? Drawn a complete blank. Just step forward cable curls. Sorry. That was 4 sets there and like the 12 to 20 rep range. I normally do the preacher curl. However, I was just a little pressed for time here. So I just made up for it. Instead of doing unilateral movement, just did a bilateral movement, sped things up that way. Still got my volume in for biceps. And that was, the main goal there. So hopefully you got some takeaways from this, little mini rant that I went on. Wasn't trying to do that, but hey, get carried away sometimes. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up here. As always, I appreciate the support, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.